Okay, the Hangout is live on air, and welcome everyone to the first VJug session in 2017. I hope everyone had a really happy holiday and a happy new year. And we had some technical difficulties, unfortunately, so we had to actually recycle the Google Hangout. So we've updated the virtualjug.com page with the new embedded link. So hopefully people are joining us as a result of hitting refresh on that page. Looks like then viewers are trickling in now, so this is good. Okay, so Oleg, everyone okay in IRC?
Yes. Hi, people. It's really great to see you in 2017, and I'm on top of the IRC channel, #virtualjug on the free node. So that is where the communication with us is going to take place. And if you have any questions to the speaker, just put it in there, and we'll find an opportune moment to distract Andres and ask the relevant questions.
And our speaker, of course, is Mr. Andres Almaray, the one and only. He's a bit of a groovy guru, but he's true to his roots as a Java champion. Andres, welcome to the Virtual Jug. How are you doing?
Hi, Simon. Thank you very much. Hi, Oleg, and hi, everybody. I'm doing fine.
And whereabouts are you calling in from today?
From Basel, Switzerland. Very snowy Basel, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah. Apparently in the UK, we're going to get about between 2 to 10 centimeters overnight or something like that. So the whole of the UK is likely going to be unusable for the foreseeable future as we experience any kind of precipitation. So Andres, what are you going to be talking about today?
Well, the goal for today is, well, the title is the JavaFX Ecosystem. The idea is to talk about different projects, libraries that should make your life easier if you want to develop JavaFX-based applications.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you yourself work for Canoe, correct?
Correct. Canoe Engineering, which is a company located here in Basel, Switzerland. We are basically a Java shop. We do a lot of things with Java, but one of our specialties is writing custom applications that target the desktop using JavaFX.
Oh, cool! And Canoe, of course, are one of our sponsors for the VJug 24, which we're very, very appreciative of. And I believe there was also a conference in Basel, Java Basel, is it?
That's right. The first edition happened last October 19, and I'm happy to say that we are going to repeat it again this year. So save the date, October 19, for people that are anywhere in Europe or anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, you want to join us personally in presence, then just save the date. It's 1 day, 2 or 3 tracks, and we have some other surprises as well coming up.
Awesome. And is JavaFX important to Canoe? Do you do much development in Canoe with JavaFX?
We do have a couple of internal projects, and most of the stuff that we do is help customers migrate from other technologies, for example, Swing or SWT in some small cases, to JavaFX.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So before we go much further on, I haven't actually got my slides prepared, so I'll just do it from memory. I've done this about 60 times, so I should remember. The Virtual Jug is sponsored by Zero Turnaround, and we have Rebel Labs as a media partner. And Oleg, I'm sure, will write up a beautiful blog post with some of the key takeaways from this session. One of the other things is if you're interested in developer tooling, either JRebel or XRebel, to help you with your performance or to make you more proficient with your Java development, do check out zeroturnaround.com for some free trials there. If you wanted to interact with us on the Virtual Jug, you can go to virtualjug.com, where you can see the video as well as the IRC chat. You can ask your questions through IRC chat, and we will ask Andres through the session or at the end. Which would you prefer, Andres?
I guess I will take questions as we go.
As we go, no worries. So yeah, ask your questions in IRC and we can ask them directly in the Hangout. Do please share the session, share the group as well on Twitter or Facebook or whatever your preferred network of social media is. We're about 10,500 people going strong right now, so do share that group. Couple of small points as well. If you click on the little settings cog on your window, try and jack the resolution up as far as that goes, and that'll help you see Andres, and also his screen if he shares his screen. I don't think there's anything else for me to add. So without further ado, I'll pass over to you, Andres.
All right, I just need to figure out how to share my screen. Click the button. There we go. Have to share the desktop. All right. So we'll continue to switch between the slides and demos. Hopefully everybody can see the main slide right now. Is it true, Oleg?
Yeah, looks good.
Yes, we can see that.
Excellent. So let's get started. And please remember to send your questions to Oleg on the channel, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. So as I said earlier, today we're going to discuss the JavaFX ecosystem. So I am Andres Almarai. I'm a Java champion working for this company, Canon Engineering. I'm originally from Mexico, and I really love working here in this company because we have plenty of chocolate, and that's great. I'm also a member of the Groovy development team, which means that I am being involved in a couple of Groovy-related projects that led me to found this project called Griffon, along with two other people, which is one of the frameworks that we're going to see today, is a framework that allows you to create JavaFX-based applications in many other respects. Okay, so that's everything that I'm going to say about myself, because now we're going to get into the topic itself. There is one disclaimer, though. The JavaFX ecosystem is comprised of open source and commercial offerings. And in this talk, I'm going to discuss only those that are open source. And we can only cover libraries and frameworks. There are much more things than that. There are tools, there are IDEs, there are so many things that you can talk about when you want to discuss JavaFX, but we cannot cover all of them in just 1 hour. And well, that's basically it. Most of the projects that we're also going to discuss today, we have here Canoe personal experience, so we know where things break and when things work perfectly well. So with that, let's get started. One of the things that JavaFX has versus its predecessor, Swing, is that the layout of widgets on the screen appears to be much, much better. If you remember from the old days, in Swing, you had to have a container object, like a panel, for example, and apply a custom layout to it. For example, a border layout or a grid back layout, which is the ugliest, the worst layout that you can ever use. In any case, you could combine container plus a layout. When in the case of JavaFX, you have a specific container that already has a very specific layout. So the two things are combined in one place. The layouts that come from the standard JavaFX library are pretty good, but there are some things that you cannot do. So the first one that I want to show, and it's a very popular layout, is called MIC layout. And in JavaFX, the component is known as MIC pane. But for all the libraries that we're going to see today, you will have an URL at the top, and you probably will going to have these slides later. So you will be able to copy and paste and find everything. And it's a good thing that most of the libraries that we're also going to cover today, if you check out the code repository, they also come with ready-made demonstrations in applications, so you can run the code and test it at live as we go. So in this particular example that we're looking at, is the declarative way of defining UIs in JavaFX using FXML. Now, you can use MIC pane using FXML as this example, or you can use it programmatically anywhere. In either way, they will work. So what is interesting about this example is that if you look at two of the properties of the MIC pane container, there's one that says layout, another that says calls, or short for columns. So these are the configuration settings that you set on this container in order to tell it how the widgets should be laid out. And then we got 5 widgets, 2 labels, a text field, a password field, and a button. And this is enough to render a typical login screen without using a password and a button that happens to span the 2 columns, both the label and the text field. So this makes it very easy to move around the components. You may be wondering if this is a typical login screen. you should have one row for the text field, another row for the password field, and a third row for the button. How I can tell the layout where the rows should be? Well, if we go back to the layout property of MikPaint, specify something that says wrap to. This means that it's going to create a new row every 2 widgets. So given that we specify a label and a text field, that's where with the MikPaint will insert the new row. Then we get the label and the password field. Now we have passed another couple of widgets. Then it's going to be the third row with just the button. It's as simple as that. The MikPaint website or the Mik Layout website contains plenty of documentation on all the different keywords. For example, fill, wrap, left, pref, grow, and many others, and the syntax that you can use for the layout, the columns, and the rows for each one of these elements that you want to see. I'm going to make use of MikPaint in some of the examples that follow, and you may see that the way that the UI is arranged, it looks much better than just using a regular grid pane, for example. So next, we're going to see some custom widgets. And when we're talking about custom JavaFX widgets, I think that one name that will probably pop to mind very quickly is @HanSolo from Twitter, Mr. Gerrit Runwell. He is the author of very nice looking widgets. For example, the ones that we're looking here is called Medusa. Medusa, if I'm not mistaken, is either the 5th or the 6th iteration of Gerrit's idea of how gadgets like this one should be visualized. And we got gadgets, we got clocks, we got bars, we got batteries, and all these things are based almost pretty much in the same components, just how you can skin these components. Gerrit has a blog. The name of the blog is harmoniccode.blogspot.com, where you can follow him and then he posts some examples of the code that he's looking at or that he has created in order to create these amazing visualizations. And the next one is also from HanSolo. It's called TilesFX, and this is a very recent addition. It's a very recent project that he created a couple of months ago. Now, the idea about TilesFX is that you can create something like dashboards, for example, and you can embed different components. The top left component is actually a gauge for Medusa, the same one on the third. We got this interesting map component in the middle. And actually, I can run this example live if you just clone the repository and just run this thing. Hopefully, you will be able to see the main screen right now. And here's TilesFX. It contains some default animations, so you can see that these things are not just, they're not really images, but they're actually live components. And there's the map component I was talking about earlier. TilesFX will be able to rearrange the elements depending on the size of the screen. So I'm just resizing the window. You can see how these things change. It's pretty cool, as a matter of fact. Let's go back to the slides. Then we got another project called JSilhouette. This is one of the earliest JavaFX related projects that are found out there. There's another one that I'm going to list, actually. This is not the first one. But in the early days of JavaFX 1, JSilhouette provided additional shapes for JavaFX, and this project has been updated in order to work with JavaFX 2 or JavaFX 8, depending on which JDK you're using. The idea behind this project is that there is only a limited set of shapes available in the standard JavaFX library. And this project will allow you to have access to additional shapes. I think I have a sampler for this one. Let's go into JSilhouette, and the project is sampler. So we simply run it directly from the code like this. And here we got additional shapes. Now there's one caveat with the JavaFX shape API is that you cannot extend the shape class. So these actually are a different kind of node that will eventually produce a shape object that you can use. This node, this class actually contains most of the properties of method that a shape class defines. So it should be pretty much interchangeable. And there are different kinds of shapes. There are rays and almonds and asterisks and arrows. This is the same arrow shape, just changing some of the properties that it has. You get regular polygons, and we got donuts, if you will, but using regular polygons, and stars with different arms. So this should give you access to much more options in case that you need to have additional shapes. Next one will be JavaFX. Well, again, for people that are coming from Swing, you might remember this project called Jide from a company called Jide Soft that created a good set of widgets that are enterprise ready. So JavaFX is a port of the open source version of Jide that works in JavaFX. And it contains a good number of additional widgets, for example, formatted text field that is missing in JavaFX, or numeric text field that allows you to enter numbers using a particular currency format. It also supplies a decoration API that you can use just to add icons or change the styles for any particular widget. And on top of the decoration API, JavaFX provides a validation. So you can trigger a custom validator that you can build, or one of the custom built or built-in validators that JavaFX provides. And when one of these semantic validations fails, then a decoration will appear on the target widget that you specify. There are other utilities for creating animations in a much easier way, handling tooltips, hints, search capabilities on, I believe, on tables and trees, and also auto-completion in some of the, if I'm not mistaken, most of the text input controls. So these libraries
I'm sorry, Andres, it seems like we lost the sound, or maybe it's just me, but something just broke. Can you please recheck?
reconnected.
Reconnected, now I can hear you. Can you please just repeat maybe last couple sentences? It was like instant.
Yeah, okay. So JavaFX is a very well beta-tested library because its foundation comes from the Swing days, where the library was was used by a lot of people. So I highly recommend you to have a look at this one in case that you need additional widgets, for example, the format text field and the numeric text field. People writing enterprise applications will certainly like to make use of these widgets. The next one is also an often missed component. It's called rich text effects, from this person called Thomas Mikula. Thomas Mikula actually will come back later because he is a very avid JavaFX author. What rich text effects allows you to do is create text area, if you will, that has syntax highlighting. So we're having a look here at this application called Markdown Writer Effects. It's an open source application that on one side, on the left side, here you can see the rich text effects component, where some markdown content is displayed using syntax highlighting. And on the right side, there is a web view from JavaFX that will render the markdown content into HTML. Now, the rich text effects component can be extended so that you can define your custom syntax highlighting. You can even supply code completion and many other languages. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to see a live example of rich text effects just shortly. So these are really nice component, and we have made use of this component a couple of times already with our customers, just because in many places, you need this capability to have some text where you can define something like the custom syntax, or even perhaps highlighting some portions of the text. So it's not just custom syntax that this component can do, but a few other things. The next one is JavaFX Extras. This is the original first open source project that was created in the JavaFX community. It has a very long history, and it has a good number of additional widgets and properties that you may want to test out. So let me show you an example. Let's run the sampler of JavaFX Extras directly. That will be java-jar JavaFX Extras. This is the latest version. And this is what we get. Let me get it a little bit bigger. All right. Say, for example, there is a calendar component that did not exist in JavaFX 2. I think there might be a calendar component in JavaFX 8. There is also a local date picker, where you can select a date, for example, today, and then you get this automatically formatted. You can change the format. There are many things that you can customize. There's a big decimal field sample, very similar to what the numeric field from JavaFX will allow you to do. It has spinners. You can customize everything, of course. What else we have that is maybe interesting? I don't think they have all the widgets here in this particular sample, but it will be very interesting for you to have a look at all the different widgets that you have access to from this particular library. The next one will be CTRLs-FX. You can think of CTRLs-FX as an incubation or a playground of widgets that it might eventually find their way into the standard JavaFX library. As a matter of fact, within JavaFX 2 and JavaFX 8, the Dialogues API was incubated inside this library, and a different version of the API, the standard that you find in JavaFX 8, will be found also in CTRLs-FX. CTRLs-FX also has a sampler, so let me show you that. I think it's inside control samples. There we go. Let's run it. All right. And the main screen should appear any moment now. There we go. So here we have a much larger number of custom widgets. One of the ones that I really like is this breadcrumb bar. So these are a series of buttons, and you can create this thing. You probably have seen this component in some web pages, so you can navigate from one place to another, and everything is, the buttons can react to your clicks. Segmented button, if you are on a Mac, you know these buttons already. Another one that's interesting here, we also get decorations just like a JavaFX. For example, let's decorate using an image. So there's the image on that corner. Or you can also decorate using CSS. Well, the whole content here is just a text field. Or an additional node, for example, this is a rectangle plus the CSS on the text field. You can visualize the different fonts. Font Awesome and Icon Moon just supported in this version. You can have this overlay on any node. You can have, for example, notifications. They used to be used in many applications in the past. You can pop them on any corner, on any location. Here's a segmented bar, ratings, range sliders. As a matter of fact, there are plenty of components that you can find in CTRLs-FX. So I would definitely recommend you also to play around with this sampler and have a look at the JavaDoc. I don't know, I haven't got the network for this. Yeah, you should display the JavaDoc and the source for this component. Probably I don't have the right access for the moment. There we go, some exceptions there. Anyway, next, we got the Glue-on Maps component. This is also another missed component in the standard library. I think it will be very impossible to have this component just because it will require additional dependencies and talking to a backend server that knows how to supply the task for the map. In this case, this is OpenStreetMap. Now, this is the first of the libraries that we're going to see today that is licensed under GPL3 and also has a commercial license. So if you make use of this project, your application must be GPL3 as well, or you have to talk to the Gluon company in order to secure a commercial library, so now your application can be licensed under whichever license suits you best. I have a live example of this running also. I believe it is here. Let's run the application. Don't mind that error. And I'm actually streaming from Basel, Switzerland. As you can see, I'm just zooming in into the map. And it was just like Google Maps, as a matter of fact. And the place where I'm currently streaming in, it's right here, right there. So this is a very fancy component. I believe it also allows you to render any kind of content, for example, shapes, so additional shapes from JSilhouette perhaps. You can render polygons. You can have different overlays just like in regular Google Maps on the web. And as you can see, once the tiles have been loaded, well, the information renders pretty quickly. The other GPL3 library that we're going to see today is called Orson Charts. Orson Charts is the next iteration of a library that you might know from the past called JFreeCharts that is based on Java 2D. Well, this version is based on JavaFX. You have many types of charting capabilities. These charts actually behave much, much better than the ones that are found in the standard JavaFX library. Like in the Gluon maps, either you create, your project has to be licensed under GPL3 if you want to make it free, or you have to pay for a commercial license in order to secure a different kind of licensing for your application. Let's see how we can change the looks of our widgets, because one thing is to say, well, this is how we can organize the widgets on the screen using layout. Another thing is to say we get additional widgets that provide different behavior, but how is it possible to change perhaps how they look? Great thing about JavaFX is that most of the widgets, if not all, support CSS. So the first project that we're going to see is called JPhoenix, which is an implementation of the material design look and feel from Google. Now this right here is just an animation on the buttons, but I actually have the demo accessible. So let's change it to JPhoenix and run the demo. Again, you can run it directly if you clone the repository from the URL that is posted in the slides. So here we get the application as was running. You can see that it's fully animated and it has this nice popping menu. Yeah, let's select, let's go with dialogues, right? And if we click center, this will pop a new dialog on the center of the screen with a nice animation. Or we can click on the bottom and the dialog will appear from the bottom, also with an animation. Notice all these things, how they look. We got additional menus. Notice how these things get animated. We got spinners. You want to display some operation that is taking some time. Or we also got different kind of text fields. Notice how the text will animate when I click on here, or perhaps with validation. Once I get out of this text field, the text field should not be blank, and I get that validation message. Of course, everything that you see here, you can customize. We got color pickers and calendars. Click on that one. Come on, close. No. Apparently there's a problem here. There we go. I don't know how to use this thing. Or you can select this and then change that for the minutes and that. Perfect. So pretty close to what the material design should be. There are a few things that, as far as I can tell, that are hard-coded. There are some animations that may take longer than should. There are some properties that are not fully stylable using CSS, but this is a moving target. Yet the library is quite robust and quite solid. So I will definitely suggest, well, actually I can give my thumbs up if you want to use it in production. But material design.
Time for a quick question.
Yes.
So we have a question from Web, please, about FXML. Web, please, is asking, should FXML be used only for prototyping? There's a comment on this as well. There are divided opinions about JavaFX in Java code versus FXML. My dilemma as well. It's happened to me that after creating several versions of UIs during prototyping, that FXML wouldn't load properly. This might be an Eclipse issue, but I wasn't sure. So I ended up rebuilding the entire UI in order to continue.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what would be the problem with Eclipse. Could be the case that it's a custom FXML editor in Eclipse. To be honest, I don't use Eclipse, and if I write FXML, I write it by hand. But if I don't, then I use this other tool called Scene Builder, which Oracle used to produce, and now Gluon is the let's say the steward of the tool, and they have made new additions, and you can download it directly from gluonhq.com. Personally, what I like to do is use FXML most of the time. If I know that the UI is static, I try to make it as lean as possible. And if I know that the UI is dynamic, then that's the moment when I turn into code.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So as I was saying, material design is not the only game in town. When you look at UI look and feels on the web, there is also Twitter Bootstrap. What if we were able to use Twitter Bootstrap in JavaFX just because, well, it's kind of CSS, isn't it? Well, I'm happy to say that you can. There's this project called Bootstrap FX, still a work in progress, and it gives you access to most of the looks of Bootstrap. It doesn't give you access to the behavior yet. So let me show you the sampler directly from Bootstrap FX. I think you can just go run here. There we go. We got the buttons. And remember that I said something about having a look at rich text effects later. So if you click on this tab, source, here's the source of the pane that we saw earlier. So these here widgets, we got 4 rows of buttons with 7 columns. So here are the 7 columns and the 4 rows. And the only thing that you need to do in order to change the look of a particular widget is apply the specific style class that will change it. So we identify the button of type button. We say the first row is going to be large, and then the different colors or indicators. And then for the next button, there's the default size, the small size, and the extra small size. So that's why these things look like this. Then same thing goes for labels and alerts and panels and headings, text, paragraph, button groups. This is quite recent, and split menus also. If you make your web page, well, no, in this case, not web page, your JavaFX application with a white background, then this certainly looks a lot like Twitter Bootstrap. All right. We also got icons. You saw in, where was it? In JavaFX Extra, you got the Cliff font, if I'm not mistaken. Well, we got Font Awesome effects that gives you access to 6 different icon packs, not just Font Awesome, but weather icons, which is the one that we're currently looking here. And it's extensible. But if you really want to have, and of course I'm going to be very biased here, if you want to have much more options in terms of icons and how you can extend it, then have a look at Iconly. And I can say I'm very biased because this is one of my projects, Iconly. And the project looks like this. We got a sampler for JavaFX. We also got a sampler for Swing. So this is one of the few projects that supports both toolkits. And let's see, we got this support for stack icons, so you can have multiple icons in one the same node. In this case, just a circle with different colors, and these are different icons. But we have access to, for example, these developer icons, dev icons. There's also, of course, font awesome. There is also weather icons. And if you have a look back at the TilesFX demo, some of these icons are being used as well. So there are many different options. As a matter of fact, I believe there are 21 different options that you can choose from automatically. And I think the website of the project gives you a list of the different names that you can use in order to find a particular icon given a specific icon pack. All right, next one. Okay, what if we want to customize the frame itself? You might remember in the old days of the MP3 players on the desktop, this very popular MP3 player called Winamp. And at some point, the developers decided to add a capability to change the decoration of the border. Even go all the way to change it so that instead of being a regular square or a rectangle, you can use any shape. And well, Undecorator Beast gives you almost the same capability. You can use any shape, you can change the opacity, you can change any kind of button that goes on top of the frame bar. So let me show you that with a quick sample. Let's run this, and I'm going to do this, and you will notice a slight animation when the main application, when the main frame appears. This is automatically done by Undecorator. There you go. You got an animation from opacity, from transparent, fully transparent to fully opaque. We got custom buttons here with custom menus. You can add any kind of node if you want to, like images or your custom icons to maximize, minimize, make it full screen or close it. We can show a new stage, for example, this one. And it also has custom buttons. I can close it here, or I can close it by clicking on this button here, or another stage. There we go. That has also some kind of transparency there. You can see it. Let's change the features, the opacity for this one. All right. And if you close the main window, you see, or actually any window, you see also that animation when it disappears. And you can change this. Again, it's also customizable. It's a nice thing about Undecorator. All right, so far we have seen how we can arrange components on the screen, how we can add new components and change the look and feel of components. But once you have created an application, the next step would be, well, test it, right? Before we deliver to production. And as far as I can tell, there are at least 3 projects that you can use to test JavaFX. But one of the 3 is actually the best of all of them. It's called TestFX. Here is a quick example of how you can test any kind of component. Now, you can work with JUnit if you want, or you can work with TestNG, or if you are a group user, then you can also use a Spark with the JUnit integration. And this particular test is showing you that once the stage that has been created in some way, I decided to omit that kind of code, because actually it's not that difficult, but it will make the code look much smaller, or I will require more slides in order to paste it in just one place here. But to say, once you have your stage initialized, then what you do is you try to locate objects using either the CSS ID or a CSS selector. So in this case, what this test is saying, and I really like how it reads, is that it's going to right-click on a component. I don't know what it is, but it has a CSS selector or desktop. And then I'm going to move the cursor to the first element, maybe a button, maybe a label, maybe something else that has that matches its textual representation to new. And once I have found it, then I'm going to click on the next element that matches the text document. And when I say write my text file, that should be a text field, that my text file txt is the content that is going to be put on the text field, and then we push the enter key. So we will expect some action to happen right after that. We can also do drag drop, and finally you can verify that's again some component, in this case matching the desktop CSS selector, has at least one child. Now this is fine, but there are some a little bit of problems. For example, we are using the desktop selector more than once. In some other cases, depending on how your UI looks, you might repeat a CSS selector many, many times. So let's have an example of this one. So we're going to click on some component, show settings button. The next thing is going to figure out if the drawer, this is from JFinix components, the JFX drawer, we're going to figure out this particular component is visible. And then notice that we make use 4 times of the same selector. In order to verify that it has some text, then change the text, and then verify that it has the new text. I think it would be better if we were to have some kind of fluent interface that would allow us to change one call to the next. And this is exactly what the JavaFX DSL project allows you to do. So in this way, you start a change of selection. So show settings button, then click on it, perfect, and then change the next selection to drawer object. And once you have it, you wait until it is shown using some default timeout. And once that is true, and then you continue. If it is false, then the whole test case aborts in this moment saying, oh, assertion fail error. And then we select the username, and we change the different calls. We verify some text, then click on that one, change the text to something else, and then verify again. This test case is exactly the same as the one we saw earlier. The advantages are that we don't have to have access to the direct widget, in this case JFX drawer. We might not know what it is. We might change it under the covers, but we need to know, the only thing that we really need to test from our functional point of view is that it's visible or not. And then the other thing is that the username selector, in this case, is used 4 times, and in this case, it's only used 1 time. And you can change from one context to another. So we're changing from show settings button to drawer to username, and we can change to something else as you wish. So depending on if you like a fluent API design or the specific programmatic API from JavaFX, you still have options. Okay. The next thing we're going to see are different frameworks, because one thing is to say, well, we got options to build applications, but how should we build them? Where should I put the view definitions? So the question is, should I use FXML or programmatic API? If I go with FXML, where should I put my resources? How should I tie up the controller classes that may or may not be associated with the FXML views? What if I want to separate the responsibilities of a controller? Because in an FXML controller, it contains both the view, the model, and the action. Because you inject the widgets, but you also have to have access to the data. And what if I want to use dependency injection, to build everything else, right? So the first framework that we're going to see is the smallest one, is a very minimalistic framework. It's called Afterburner Effects. This is a high-productivity WYSIWYG editor. It has no boilerplate code. The interesting thing about this one is they only defines 3 classes and nothing more. It gives you dependency injection. It has no external libraries nor dependencies. It's just one jar, and you can build it with Maven. Now, the disadvantage of Afterburner, again, is because it's so small, is that if you need something else, for example, internationalization, or if you need resources injection, or if you need a central error management, or you need something more than that, well, Afterburner is not going to give it to you. You will have to add an additional dependency for that. The next one will be JackCPFX. This is a framework that is inspired in the workbench and perspective concepts that you find in Eclipse, but it's nothing related to the Eclipse platform or the Eclipse project. It provides a Spring support. You can build projects with Maven. It gives you access to messaging. It has access to lightweight event bus. It also supplies view templates, whether you write them in XML or you do it programmatically. So this particular project gives you much more benefits than what we saw earlier with afterburner effects. The next one will be JRebit. Gives you almost the same capabilities as just CPFX, and it also gives you, so I think it supports OSGI, so it supports modular applications, if you will. It also supports an MVC way of defining the different components in your application. It gives you an application lifecycle. So now you can react when an application is starting, when a frame is visible, when it's hidden, when the application shuts down, a few other things. We also got MVVM effects. The interesting thing about this project is that if you do not like the MVC pattern, then you may want to try MVVM, which stands for Model View View Model. The interesting thing about this project, this pattern, is that the view model contains both the logic and the data that the application should use. You can create an application as a series of groups of different model view models. The view, if I'm not mistaken, is quite simple. You can also create it using XML. It's Maven compatible, but the thing about this particular framework is that it gives you access only to the definitions of the model view model. It's how you separate or how you structure the application, but it doesn't give you messaging. It doesn't give you an event bus or many other things that you might require. So you might need to add more dependencies in order to gain those capabilities. Next, we got tornado effects. The interesting thing about tornado effects is that it's built using the Kotlin language. It gives you many of the capabilities that we saw earlier in the other frameworks, and it gives you MVC or MVP or other derivatives of these different architectural patterns. Gives you dependency injection. Because it's built on Kotlin, you got type safe, you get access to type safe UI builders, which is one interesting thing that the Kotlin language allows you to do with less code, but more bang for your buck, I would say. It also supports OSGI. Personally, I'm not a fan of OSGI, but for people that would like to use it, then there you go. And has some bells and whistles. The next one, and here I'm going to be also very biased because I said earlier, I'm one of the founding members of the Griffon framework. You can have access to all these features that you see on the screen. And what I like about this framework is that it's highly customizable. You can change pretty much any aspect of the runtime itself, and it's highly extensible using plugins. So if you don't need something, just don't put it. If you need something extra, don't just add the plugin to it. You got MVC artifacts if you want to, you got configuration, application lifecycle, dependency injection, resources, event bus, just like we saw earlier. But this one also supports both Maven and Gradle in case that you want to use a different build tool. Griffon has a small sibling. It's called Basilisk. The difference between Griffon and Basilisk is that Basilisk has the same features, plus it targets only the desktop and mobile space using Gluon's JavaFX mobile Gradle plugin. So with this, if you want to build an application that targets both iOS, Android, and desktop with the same code base, then you will have access to all these features. You will only require a single project in order to target the 3 different platforms. Most of the examples and the code that you see on the Griffon framework are applicable to the Basilisk applications because they share a lot of code base, as a matter of fact. Now we can turn into platforms. Platforms are much bigger than frameworks. In this case, we only got 2 platforms. It's either the Eclipse RCP platform, You can use this project called EFX Clips from Tom Schindel. Basically, it gives you access to all the power of the Eclipse RCP platform, but instead of writing your UIs in SWT, you use JavaFX. This gives you another advantage because as people that have written Eclipse RCP applications know, you need to target a specific platform when you create a distribution, whether it's OS X or it's Windows, Pentium, and whatnot. But because SWT requires a native library for each one of these target platforms, where JavaFX doesn't require that. So the advantage now here is that you only have to provide a single distribution for all the platforms that you want to target. Or if you don't like Eclipse RCP and you prefer NetBeans, then you can use EFX. I know it's a little bit confusing that the names are almost similar. And this gives you access to the full power of the NetBeans RCP application, but instead of writing your views in Swing, you use JavaFX also. So you can hook into everything that the NetBeans platform gives you and just define the UIs with using a different UI toolkit. We got some additional libraries. And if you are missing docking system in JavaFX, there are like 3 or 4 different ones. I believe that AnchorFX is the most mature of the ones that you can find out there. And it works just as you expect. It's quite basic. You can drag a component to one of the corners, to the top, left, right, or bottom of the center. You can drag one of these things outside of the frame, so that will create a new window, and you can close that window. And if it's customized in the right way, then the paint will reappear inside of the previous container that where it used to live. Just like a regular docking framework, as you would expect. We also got this other interesting library called vWorkflows. Allows you to visualize graph of any kind of widgets. This image that we're looking here, right here in this center, here is a node, a visualization that has an embedded graph inside it, or you can also visualize 3D content. You can visualize anything that you want to. This is one of the libraries that we're making use here internally at Canoe. And as a matter of fact, we have contributed some patches to this library because it's a really good. I believe I have an example of that one from the vWorkflows library. And one of the projects is called demo. Okay, so we just simply say the workflows demo run. It should run the base demo. And the frame should appear in just a moment. There we go. So we got here all of these nodes. You notice these circles, these are the connectors. So I can connect this circle, the pinkish one, to, let's say, this one, and we see an animation that is green. Yes, I can connect it here. Say, can I connect it there? No, it's red. Can I connect it here? Also, I can't. Well, if I establish a connection, boom, there we go. And I can visualize another graph inside, I believe. Just click in there. There we go. I can make it bigger. And there's this embedded graph. So many things that you can change. You can change all the colors. You can everything change with CSS. It's quite good. And let's say something about Thomas Mikula. Well, he's back here. He has a good number of projects that allows you to work with JavaFX much easily. For example, ReactFX. It sounds similar to, it doesn't have to do anything with React.js, which is a JavaScript framework, a UI framework. It doesn't have to do with reactive programming, but it pretty much gives you access to additional bindings or different binding utilities. And another, what is it called? This thing is called an event stream. So if you ever had the need to consume events from a widget, for example, click events or mouse events, and if you're in Java 8, you would like to use Java 8 streams, but turns out you can't. But using the event streams class from ReactFX, then you can turn this into an infinite source of events, if you will. You can turn a button into an infinite source of click events, or you can listen to property changes from any widget and consume them using a stream-like API. Flawless is another layout. This is used by Rich Text Effects, if I'm not mistaken. Then OndoFX is an Ondo manager for JavaFX. It works on top of ReactFX, and properties is quite straightforward to use. And finally, Well-Behaved Effects is a project that allows you to register keyboard shortcuts or keyboard combinations in case that you want to trigger an action on any kind of widget, given some kind of shortcut. We also got, of course, RX JavaFX. The goal of the RX JavaFX is that you have access to RX Java API in order to consume. You can hook subscribers into any widget that you may want to use. If you are into reactive programming, then you know about RX Java already. So if you want to, or you need to visualize data sources or data pipelines coming from reactive programming, and you can use JavaFX for this, then just apply RX JavaFX and boom, there you go, you're in business. Finally, we are almost coming to the final number of slides. If you're feeling adventurous and you want to give a try to different languages, I would suggest you to have a look at GroovyFX. GroovyFX supplies or provides a DSL for writing UIs. Remember the first slide that we saw at the beginning with MIGPaint, where we define a login screen with 5 components? Well, this is pretty much the same UI definition, but using the GroovyFX DSL. And for those that have looked at JavaFX in the early days, in JavaFX script or JavaFX 1, you might look that GroovyFX looks a lot like JavaFX script. The advantage is that it's much modern. It supports all the different features that you may expect from the standard JavaFX API. You can add any kind of custom widget, and of course, because you have the power of the Groovy language, you can use any dynamic constructs that you have access to from the full range of the Groovy language. Here's another interesting thing. It's called AsciiDocFX. This is an application. This is not a library. What I like about this application is that it allows you to render AsciiDoc content and gives you, it's kind of like a simple text editor, well, a little bit more than a simple text editor for AsciiDoc, because you have buttons that will give you access to different syntax options that AsciiDoc has. And just like the Markdown writer effects, on one side, you got the syntax and the AsciiDoc source. On the other side, you got the web view that renders that content. This application won the Duke's Choice Award in 2015, and the guys that were given the honor in Java 1 San Francisco that year. I'm not exactly sure if they make use of rich text effects for this component. I want to say yes, but I haven't looked into the source code because this looks very familiar. And so if you want to know more how this application was created and you want to learn the different tips and tricks that the team did, well, just go into that URL. So with this, I hope I have achieved my goal to give you some tips on libraries and projects. You feel a little bit like this, oh wow, I didn't know JavaFX could do that. Yes, it actually, JavaFX is quite useful. It's quite extensible. Despite some of the shortcomings that are found in the standard JavaFX widgets, well, the JavaFX community has picked up the slack and has created a quite good number of widgets and projects that allows you to create applications in a much easier and a much funner way and a much entertaining way, at least for you, and for your customers having a much better user experience. So remember, all the other things that we saw today are open source. I will highly encourage you to contribute to open source in any way, in any capacity that you can. You don't have to contribute source if you don't want to, or you can for some reason. At the very least, what I will expect from most of you is that if you encounter a problem with any of these projects or any other open source project, at least let the people know, hey, there's a problem. Just register a bug report and say, here are the steps you can reproduce this problem. Give me enough information for the environment. And believe me, that is plenty of information. That's plenty of things that the team will have access to fixing the problem. But if you can contribute back using source code or test cases, much the better. Also, just remember that the JavaFX ecosystem is much bigger than this. There are other libraries that I could have talked about, and there are also, of course, open commercial libraries. But I will lead the people that are behind those projects to talk about those. But at the very least, I will say, have a look at Gluon or talk to Dick Lemmerman in Switzerland about the things that they are doing, because they are quite interesting. So with that, thank you very much for your time. And if you have any more questions, then I will be very happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andres. Yeah, we do have some questions actually, but before we go on, there's one thing that we got, one of your slides totally reminded me of it. Way back in 2016, way back then. Remember that year? We got the Virtual Jug won an award, and it's actually sitting on my desk now. It actually took a while to come here to be delivered, but this is the award. It's the Duke's Choice Award for 2016, and the Virtual Jug won it as one of the effectively services rendered to Java community. So really proud of the Duke's Choice Award, and massive thank yous obviously to everyone, including Oleg and many other speakers, including people like Andres and everyone else. So anyway, enough about that. Some questions. Okay, so we have some questions. First question from Rondan. If I create a custom control extending some layout like grid pane, and I would like to place another component in a specific row, how can I configure the custom layout I created to put the inner component inside that specific row?
Well, my first suggestion would be to not, well, that's the thing. You must extend grid pane. Perhaps what you could do is extend pane and hide away the fact that you're using grid pane inside. You will have to create an additional set of methods in order for your custom widget to add elements into the specific positions that you want. The reason why I suggest to do this is that if you expose to the outside world that you are a child of grid pane, then anybody had access to all the full API of the grid pane, so they might change some of the constraints or the limitations of your custom component in a way that you don't want to. But if you hide away the fact that you're using a grid pane, then you are in full control of where your, let's say, the default content goes and where the custom area goes for your particular component. Okay.
We've got a question from Oleg. Do you remember your question, Oleg? It was about 20 minutes ago. I can ask it for you if you've forgotten.
Do that. You have a list.
I have a list. The question is, what's Andres' favorite IDE for JavaFX code?
My favorite IDE for JavaFX code. So as I said earlier, I write my FXML by hand. So I can use VI or TextMate just because I'm on a Mac. But when I'm not doing that, I use IntelliJ.
You don't use VI seriously on a Mac to do JavaFX, FXML.
Yeah, well, you get this tool called the Scene Builder, which is a WYSIWYG editor. And I think that's fine. If you're just starting with FXML and you have no idea what's going on, then use that tool in order to figure out how the syntax looks like to get a feeling, a lay of the land. But I have found that once you know how things should look like, or in my case, I think I'm very pedantic, I prefer to do things by hand.
Okay, question from Rimaz. I have a question. Customizing component with JavaFX CSS seems good, but how can we make our own custom component like the ones Han Solo, Garrett Grunwald? I think you know that guy, right?
Yeah. He's a colleague of ours here at GNU, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. In other words, how can we make a library like the ones you introduced? Is there any tutorial or documentation?
Not really, but if you follow Hans Solo and if you go to his blog website, which is again harmoniccode.blogspot.com, he has a series of posts on how what's his thought process when he creates custom components. He also has a couple of slides or presentations that have made across the years since he started his journey in JavaFX like 5-6 years ago. That are very, very good to follow, good to know.
I think is he Hans Solo underscore or underscore Hans Solo?
Hans Solo underscore.
Hans Solo underscore on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Web Please asks, what is Andres's favorite IDE for coding? And how does his development work? What does his development workflow look like?
Well, I keep switching between IntelliJ and Vim on the command line. And my development workflow, it's a little bit chaotic. I keep switching from one IDE to the next and from one place to the other. But if I want to retain my sanity, I think that I put everything together and I build everything together using Gradle. There's no other build tool that will fit the build in this case.
Awesome. In fact, if you're interested in Gradle or want to hear more, Cedric Champeau ran a VJug session just last month, so that's on the VJug website. Harry M asks, what is the recommended way to switch screens in a multi-screen application?
This is a little bit of a problem. And the on-decorator base has support for, as I said earlier, for full screen. And I believe there has been reports of that failing on Windows. I don't recall exactly what's the combination of APIs that you need to use, to do this. But you can have a look at how they do it in on-decorator base.
Okay. And that's all the questions. So great questions this week, and a great session. Thank you very much, Andres. And I think this is like your third or fourth VJug session.
I think it's my third.
Your third VJug session, so the hat trick of VJug sessions. That's great. Thank you very much for your session, and thanks again for supporting the VJug. Big thanks to Canoe for supporting VJug 24, as I said last year. This session is going to be replayed on virtualjug.com, or follow us on the YouTube VJug channel, and you can see all our replays of all sessions there. The next session actually on the VJug is going to be a book club. If I was prepared, I would be able to just tell you what date that is right now, but
I think it is 17th of January.
17th of January.
That is Tuesday next week.
And the book is Using Microservices, I think, by Sam Newman, which is, I believe, the de facto book for microservices. If you're interested in joining us for that, you can have a look on the meetup page, the meetup.com/virtualjug, and you can find a link to get that book either digitally with 50% off or on paper format for 40% off. Read some chapters exactly as it says in the meetup, or the number of chapters it says in the meetup event, and we'll go through those specific chapters. And joining us will be Sam Newman, the author. So you'll be able to ask questions directly to the author of that book and ask all about microservices. So that's happening. Yep, here it is. That's happening on it is indeed Tuesday, January the 17th. So nothing else I've got to say other than thank you very much to Andres, and thank you everyone for joining us on the VJug today. Thanks again to Oleg.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon.
Nice.
Thank you, Oleg. Thank you, everybody. And highly encourage you to come back to listen to other interesting speakers at the VJug and participate.
Very kind. Thank you, Andres.
By the way, also last moment question, not the question, but the thing to notice. If you have any questions about JavaFX, then what you should do, you should go on Twitter and follow Andres, and he goes by @A Almery.
Correct.
We'll provide that link somewhere as well. So be sure if you have any questions, just ping him. He will respond to you. And this will encourage building a stronger community. So do that.
Good idea. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time. Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodbye.